Welcome back, everyone, once again to a new installment of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Jeff.
And my name is Max.
Boy, dude, how metal is that? My world is fire and blood. I love it.
How metal is this fucking movie?
Oh my god.
I died and went to Valhalla.
Shiny and chrome. I think so we bumped this recording session up a little bit to make sure we had 2 drops in December. So you're welcome, America. Bobby. You're welcome.
If he wasn't convinced he had a stroke before, he will be now.
Yeah, what was his comment where he's talking about how like we spent 20 fucking minutes talking about sports? Like, who the hell are we?
He said the guys were talking about sports. Fuck, I stroked out and must have died.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Like, how'd we talk that long about sports?
Full disclosure, I am still sick after 2 rounds of antibiotics, so I will be.
God damn, dude.
I know.
I'll be your blood bag.
So yeah, you have to excuse the stuffiness and the voice. I can tell that my voice is not its normal self anyway, and like I don't know, I'm just constantly stuffy. Yeah, I've had azithromycin and one that I can't pronounce.
I couldn't pronounce the first word you just said.
And I've had them both before. They're both fucking awesome. And I had Medrol with azithromycin on top of it. And yeah, I'm still sick.
Do you just have like your really bad head cold still, or do you have something like specific?
It's starting to feel a lot more like a sinus infection than it was before.
Whack. Those are the worst.
I feel like it started as a sinus infection, went to a head cold, and then now I can't decide if I'm getting a sinus infection, an ear infection, or both. And now it's a goddamn superbug because I've had 2 rounds of antibiotics.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. But
Yeah,
how have you been, Jeff?
We don't got to talk about any of that. That's fine. What was that tweet you sent me from the Philbrook where it was the airing of grievances? So we said that was gonna be. Yeah, we got some grievances to air. Yeah, so the universe is actively trying to kill me. I'm not gonna go into like super detail on this, but we were in a car accident and my car got totaled. So
fortunately, it's the only thing that got totaled.
Yeah, everyone was fine. So that's the important thing. But the crazy thing was 4 days later, we were at our local mall when there was an unfortunate shooting that happened, and it's just like, what? For that to happen in a 4-day span, it's just kind of crazy. But
yeah, that's insanity.
Yeah, the only silver lining in it was it wasn't like an active shooter situation. It was an isolated incident. So, like, it could have been worse, but it's still unfortunate for that to happen, period. And it's a scary situation for everyone involved because you don't know until after the fact if it's, the first situation like I talked about or the second situation. So it's a scary thing, but fortunately we're okay. So but it was
just
did
stop
make for a
going outside, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll stop going outside. But it did make for a fucking crazy week. So and what better to top off a crazy week
than a crazy ass movie?
Fucking Mad Max Fury Road, dude.
Did Aurora watch this with you?
She watched about half of it. She didn't watch like the first half of it, but in like one instance about like halfway through the movie started to kind of like catch her eye, and then she watched like the second half of the movie.
What drew her in? I'm curious.
I think it was just I don't think it was anything
the flashing
specific.
lights, because that's what gets me.
No. I think part of it was and she's in agreement with me, the soundtrack. I think this has maybe my favorite top to bottom like soundtrack of any movie, because the score of Mad Max Fury Road makes you want to go start a fucking bar fight. It's so good.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing about it in this movie, and we'll get into it when we get to the movie, is it's not a here's your movie, here's your sound effects, here's your music. Like, the music is just as important a part. The music is a character in the movie, right? So it's just as important a part of it as Max or Furiosa. Some of the shit they sync up with the soundtrack in this movie.
It's so good, but it's also just like they need the soundtrack to be this good because there's so many moments of just silence and kind of just meandering around the desert.
And
because the movie is just they're constantly in motion, and like the soundtrack really, really never lets up.
yeah, and the silence is deafening when we get to those scenes too. Like it's noticeable.
Do you also forget just how like astounding Mad Max Fury Road is until you watch it again and then you realize it's a fucking masterpiece?
It's
on
one of those
every
movies.
freaking level.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I always remembered as being really, really good, but then when I watch it, I had forgotten how good.
You remember it being an amazing movie. You don't remember it being, holy shit, this might be one of the top 10 best movies of the past 20 years. It's perfect.
Oh, and speaking of, this movie's almost 10 years old.
Yeah, Aurora had commented to me basically saying it was the soundtrack and she liked the character of Nux a lot.
Nux has a heck of an arc.
Yeah.
As does our boy Max.
Yeah, we'll talk about it too. Mad Max not being the main character in Mad Max Fury Road was an interesting writing decision too, because he's not really the protagonist, even though he's part of the title.
Yeah, he's supporting.
He's pretty much a supporting character, which is an interesting take, because he was always his character is. By the way, spoilers for Fury Road. I'm assuming everyone has fucking seen Fury Road. Also, what is there really to spoil? Because
it's a car chase beginning to end.
We're gonna drive over there. Nah, fuck that place. Let's drive back. That's the plot.
We're gonna drive east through the desert, and then we're gonna turn around and drive west through the desert.
Yep.
Credits.
That's it. That's it. Also, and you mentioned how it was almost 10 years ago now. They've apparently been wanting to get a second follow-up movie for a while now, but it got delayed because of a pay dispute between George Miller and Warner Brothers. So that's why it took so fucking long for Warner Brothers to actually
Yeah, the interesting thing about this movie is it was supposed to be two movies filmed back to back. Supposed to be Mad Max Fury Road and Mad Max Furiosa. And they were supposed to be filmed back to back together.
I can't have you watched that trailer yet for Furiosa, man? It's so good.
I don't need to.
It's you don't need to, but it's it's so fun. Like they don't really have any of the crazy action scenes spoiled either. It's just very, very small snippets, and you get like a glimpse of Anya Taylor-Joy's young Furiosa and like Chris Hemsworth.
I was gonna ask you who
chewing the fucking scenery Chris Hemsworth is. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you who was playing young Furiosa.
Anya Taylor-Joy looks to be killing it in it. She has the same kind of intensity that Charlize Theron has in this. I think it's a good choice. And Chris Hemsworth, I can't wait for you to see like what his characterization is in it, because he is batshit in pure Mad Max fashion. It looks great. It's very Bad Times at the El Royale, just like cranked up to like batshit levels. So you're gonna like it. Let's get into the casting crew. I think you had mentioned Bobby's comment. That was our only comment in question, right?
Yes.
Discuss. All right. If you have any future prompts or questions for Ron and myself about pretty much anything, we'll bullshit about anything. See the last 80 whatever episodes we've done of this show.
86? Is that right?
I don't know. I don't do numbies, man. It's too late for numbies. I've had
87.
a long week.
This is number 88.
This is 88. Nice.
This is 88. And what,
you
3 years running also?
Crazy. They still haven't shut us down. If you have any questions or prompts for Ron and myself, you can always email us, screenplayrewind@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter with a message. It's at SPR Filmcast. But the first thing that we have to talk about with this movie, has there ever been a director with a more insane career trajectory than George Miller?
One of the things that delayed this movie was Happy Feet, his commitment to Happy Feet.
His 3 movies leading up to Mad Max Fury Road were Happy Feet, Happy Feet 2, and fucking Babe Pig in the City. How did the guy who did Babe Pig in the City do Mad Max Fury Road, dude?
Almost did Justice League.
Yeah, that was the Army Hammer one, right? That he was attached to for a really long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that. I don't think there's ever been a movie in deeper fucking development hell than that Justice League movie. That movie was cursed. That movie was legitimately cursed.
Yeah, this movie was described as being in development hell, but I don't think it went through anything that Justice League movie did. Because this movie is described as being in development hell because they tried to start making it in 1987, and it took them till 2015 to do it. But the thing that I've always wanted to know, the guy doesn't use CG for any reason, almost.
Yeah, those Happy Feet dancing penguins, all practical.
All practical effects. And
impeccable work. Well, like, it's crazy. Just crazy.
I don't know
crazy
how
stuff.
they taught those penguins to do that. But I always wanted to know how he planned to teach a man to fly and shoot lasers out of his eyes. That was the thing I always wanted to know, George Miller. Screenplayrewind@gmail.com. Please write in and tell me, George Miller.
I just got a mental image of the penguins and Happy Feet on the like giant pole things in Fury Road. I want to see that movie. I want to see Imperator Mumble.
Mumble.
Mumble Rictus.
Oh my god.
Also, his follow-up after Mad Max Fury Road was a movie that looked really interesting, but I never got around to seeing it. Had you heard of the 3,000 Years of Longing movie?
I have no idea what that is.
So it is Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba.
Well, I'm in.
As the main characters in it. And it's like a kind of reimagining of like it is, oh god, what is the name of the original? So, but it's like, yeah, Idris Elba plays a genie in it. And it looked really interesting. I just saw like one trailer and then it just kind of, I don't think it ended up performing that well, like box office wise, but it looked really interesting.
Okay. I've never heard of this movie.
Yeah, it really came and went. Like it was interesting. Like they,
that's what I'm known for, baby.
it was in the kind of theater scene on trailers for what felt like a freaking weekend, and then it just disappeared. It was really bizarre. But that's the thing. It's like you look at his movie history as a director, and even if the movie's not great, it's gonna be interesting just because it's George Miller, and the guy just has like range for days to be able to make fucking Mad Max Fury Road and Babe Pig in the City. That's insane. And I love him for it.
It was real weird. It was real weird when Babe just sprayed chrome paint into his mouth and jumped on the back of a car. It was a real weird scene.
Witness, Babe. What do you think, just spitballing, was the reasoning for such like a stark kind of career path change, you know? What do you sometimes it is because people want to make movies for their kids or their grandkids. You think he just wanted to go make a few movies for his grandkids?
Yeah,
I could see that being a thing.
It strikes me as a decision that, like, I get the feeling George Miller only does what George Miller wants to do.
George Miller doesn't do what George Miller does.
That's for George Miller. George Miller does it George Miller because George Miller. Yeah, it strikes me as like Ridley Scott, right? Like, I just feel like after a certain point in their career, they realize, oh, you know what? I'm going to make this movie. And they're like, well, we don't really think that's a good idea for you to. No, I'm going to make this movie. Okay, how much do you need? Because, like, you know, like they just reach a point in their career. What are you going to do? Stop them?
It's George fucking Miller.
It's George fucking Miller, right? Like, that's what Ridley Scott did with all of the recent Alien movies we've gotten is, I'm going to make an Alien movie. You know, Mr. Scott, the last couple of movies, no, I said, I'm making another Alien movie. Like, that's the point.
He walks up to a fucking full Heisenberg, like, say my name.
Say my name. Yeah, he's got the hat on for some reason. Yeah, like, they just, you know, some directors just reach that point and they realize it. So, I don't know. I feel like George Miller just does whatever he wants to do.
It's similar to Spielberg, I imagine, too. Because Spielberg has had some, you know, very, very odd choices for his movies, but they get made, you know?
Yeah, he's also he's also ascended, though. Like, he's reached the point that he's also determining what movies get made, even if he doesn't make them, you know?
He looked directly into the Crystal Skull. Yep. Never looked directly into the Crystal Skull.
Never looked directly into the Crystal Skull. Always keep it covered.
So he directed this. I believe he was also a co-writer on it. Yeah, with Brendan McCarthy and Nick Lothoris.
I can't get this out of my head now that we went there. Um, the knowledge that he gleamed from the Crystal Skull, by the way, no one has ever backed away from a choice as hard as Spielberg backed away from Shia LaBeouf. Like, no one has ever Homer Simpsoned harder into a bush.
I don't think he Homer Simpson. I think he jumped onto the tree vines and swung away.
Swung away.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
just to get out as fast as possible.
Because the gift that Spielberg has is that he knows what's going to make money, right? So even if
he invented the summer blockbuster, literally.
Yeah, even if he's not directing the movie, he might be a producer credit, and that movie only happened because he said so, and it was another blockbuster, because that is the gift that he has. So he literally put a scene in a movie with him hand choosing the next Indiana Jones. Yeah. And that character showed up at a red carpet event with a paper bag on his head, and he was like, whoa, 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 and just backed away.
And they're like, you know what? Maybe we'll just go back to 9,700-year-old Harrison Ford.
Yep. We'll just go back to elder abuse.
Yeah. Man.
Oh, man. Anyways, that was all I could think of after we brought up Spielberg, is what information he gleaned from the Crystal Skull.
So another interesting thing to think about for me, I would love to read the script for Mad Max Fury Road, where it's like page 1, cargo west, page 2, cargo east, credits, because when so much of it, like, the film lives within the action and the like minutia of the movement. How much of it is scripted versus how much of it is like George Miller's storyboards?
Yeah,
I'd be really interested to see what is the word count of the script for Mad Max Fury Road, because I'm not saying it doesn't have like depth to it. It actually like you mentioned with like Nux, like there are some character development, arcs in here. There's a little bit more. I love how they just kind of hint at stuff in the background. Well, one of the things that I took notice of specifically in this viewing is how like evocative is the image of the crow people, like walking around on the stilts.
That is Dark Souls bullshit.
They are Bloodborne bosses, man.
Yeah,
and they're so creepy and evocative.
That's Eileen's village.
Yeah, and they barely talk about them. They only talk about how that was the green place. And they don't elaborate on so much of the background of the surrounding areas, the surrounding like villages of people. It's I think it's really deftly done.
Well, the genius of that is they get you enough information on screen for you to understand what's happening. You might not understand everything, but you understand enough. And why would these characters that live here be explaining shit to each other? They live here, right? Like, they know. What? Mad Max is the audience stand-in? No, he lives in this fucking world too. He knows enough about what's happening, even if he doesn't know what's happening. He knows what's happening, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Sit down and explain to someone all the details and the history of the lore of this land? Like, it makes total sense that no one would fucking talk about it. And, since I've already broke the Dark Souls barrier, this movie is all about environmental storytelling and telling the story through images more than anything. Because most of what you're getting from the characters is gunshots and grunts as they're getting shot and stabbed.
Pretty much.
Like, so there is... Also, we were talking about how strong the character development is. This movie is a spectacle, and that's a hell of a draw. But where critically this movie lives and dies is the character development, because it's got nothing else. It's got the spectacle and character development, and the story is pretty bare bones. There's enough there to build a movie around. There's not enough there to support the movie. Like, this is cheesy or whatever, but it's got a good story and I like it. That's not something you're ever going to say about Mad Max Fury Road, because the story is too bare bones. The story is just the character motivation, basically. So, yeah, this movie lives and dies by the spectacle and the character development. And Jesus Christ, Jeff. the spectacle in this movie. I forgot about the guys on the poles being counterweighted,
man.
the Cirque du Soleil people.
And just to think about, we've received some online figures estimating either 80% or 90%, but either way, whatever percentage that is practical effect for this is absurd. And I don't know how people didn't get fucking killed making this movie, because it looks insane, especially the third act. The whole third act chase
Jeff,
is fucking bonkers.
Jeff, practical effects. Everybody died making this movie. No, even we talked about this when we were talking about like Chow Yun-fat and Jet Li and stuff. Movies that have humor in it where there shouldn't be humor, but it totally works. Like, even after one of the most intense car chases you've seen, and then they go into the dust storm, and Tom Hardy's trying to free himself, and you just hear the banging, and the camera pans slightly right as he looks over his shoulder, and there's the goddamn war rig with Charlize Theron trying to bang all the dust out of the air filters.
Yeah.
Like, she's just right there. Like, after all of that. Because you think, well, how the fuck's he didn't catch up to him now? They parked. They stopped. And they're just right over there, and you don't know it till you hear the banging. But he's just sitting there rattling the chains, and when he stops, the banging continues, and then the camera just barely pans right. I love it so much.
The movie is funnier than you think it is.
Oh yeah,
like when you think back on it, your brain obviously fixates on the bonkers and batshit car chases and action sequences, but it's pretty funny. Like, they have some pretty good physical comedy, some pretty good one-liners with it. I want to talk about, just real quick, how fucking awesome the cinematography is with like the cult. Like, what's interesting is I think they were originally wanting to make this in black and white, and that's why they made that black and white extra version, you know?
Yeah.
But I associate so much of the striking colorization of the different areas, like when they have that really, really deep blue, that's used for the night sequences in the desert. The desert, like the sandstorm, looks so incredibly cool with the way they have the lightning bolts and the striking like colors of orange everywhere.
This movie looks like it's happening on Mars.
It also looks to be just like when they're about to enter the sandstorm. Does that not look like a fucking metal album cover?
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good and so metal.
Hey, you want to see something terrifying? Those sandstorms have a name. I forget what it is. But that happened in Arizona, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. There was all these images of it everywhere.
Fuck that. Don't they have them in Dubai a lot as well?
They happen in places like that. I think they happen in Australia a lot. The thing that was weird and crazy is that it happened in, like, fucking Phoenix or something.
That's crazy.
Like, there's all these crazy images of it coming in. It's just a wall of sand and dirt with lightning in it that covers up the horizon, covers up the sky, everything. And it is some of those images, they look fake, but they're fucking real life. That happened. And it looks exactly like what this looks like in this movie.
It's nuts. And those are mostly the only times they ever wanted to use CGI, was pretty much to set the surroundings and the landscape around them. If it was going to be something that it's not, pretty much, if it's feasible, it's going to be real. And if it is CGI, the CGI looks damn good in this movie. I watched this on Blu-ray last night. This movie is, 8 years old now, about to be 9. And because so much of it is practical, that helps it, obviously. We've talked about that with stuff like John Carpenter's The Thing, how it becomes timeless when it's practical, because it's always going to be there. You know, it was there when they filmed the scene. You know, it's not something that can be dated like so many of the 90s CGI that we've talked about on the show. But good God, the practical effect, there is no weakest link in any of the filmmaking techniques here. The acting is good, cinematography is good, the fucking editing, dude, you see everything. Think about
there's no
this
shaky cam, no shaky cam at all.
Think about this compared. We were talking about Rosie Huntington. Is it Huntington-Whiteley? Is that her full name? It's something like that. But how she was in. We were talking in the green room about how she was in one of the Transformers sequels. And just compare the action of this to literally any action sequence that Michael Bay did for the Bayformers movies.
I can't, Jeff, because I never saw any of them.
They're hot. Yeah, they didn't happen. But if they did happen, hypothetically, hot garbage. in comparison to Mad Max Fury Road, because if any movie should have fucking convoluted cinematography and the way that it's framed, it should be the movie where they're on fucking poles going 80 miles an hour in the goddamn desert, directed by the Happy Feet guy. Like, what? How can I always know where I'm at within the scene as far as what I'm supposed to watch, what I'm supposed to be drawn to as a viewer, and also you're able to keep track of where all the characters are flawlessly
and what's happening between each character.
Because in that last chase, a big part of like what's going on is they're switching sides of the chase, they're switching vehicles, they're constantly jumping from car to car, and you never feel like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Not a single time. You always know exactly what you're supposed to be looking at. And that is also heavily on George Miller, because I've just, like, read interviews where he is fixated on, I think he even, when they were filming the movie, he would go and literally with a marker draw in the center of the screen what he wants centered. That way, when they were filming it, what is supposed to be drawing your eyes and what he thinks is the most critical part of the action sequence was always a focus of the people running the cameras. So he like, I don't know if it was like circles or squares, but he was literally drawing to designate the center of the cameras, so they were always fixated on what is in this very center of the screen, because it is laser focused all throughout the action sequences, and it's fucking amazing.
And you never feel like you miss anything either. It's crazy.
It's so fucking good. I'm taken aback every time I watch it, because you're just watching the sequence happen, and you look at your watch, and you look back a few minutes later, you've been watching a 30-minute action sequence, and it feels so fast, and the pacing is just so good,
fast
and that
so furious.
That fucking score, dude. That when that main theme happens, I'm so fucking Jones, dude. Oh, I love it so much.
The fight with Rictus, when every punch that lands is emphasized by the drums.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so fucking good. Let's run through the specific people in the cast we haven't already spoken about. So we had mentioned how, it's obviously a Mad Max movie, but I think you have to start with Charlize Theron, because to me, Furiosa was always the main character in this.
It's pronounced Furiosa. It's the only thing I could think of every time I hear that name now. Yeah, she's clearly the star of the movie, which is interesting because, again, it's supposed to be filmed back to back, and the next one was supposed to be called Mad Max Furiosa.
So here's my question. I was not aware that it was supposed to film back to back. Was the original idea for it to make it a prequel like it is now, like the Furiosa movie is now coming out next year, or was it going to be a sequel? Do you happen to know?
I don't know, but if you're filming them back to back, that tells me it's probably a sequel.
To keep the actors on? Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm wondering if the movie we're getting now isn't maybe a mix of both, or wasn't rewritten into a prequel.
Yeah, it makes sense. We also have Charlize Theron is also just like intense and amazing.
She's so good in this.
She's fantastic.
When do you want to talk alternate castings? I've got some alternate castings here too.
Let's run through the primary cast, and then we'll run down some alternate ones. So we have Tom Hardy, who was on just a fucking hot streak around this time. Like, he was in everything around 2015. He was originally, this was the idea for Fury Road was one George Miller had in the back of his head for a very, very long time. And it was originally going to have Mel Gibson in it. It was just going to continue the Mel Gibson series, but then so much time had passed, and Mel Gibson had gotten in such hot water with all of his, IRL grievances.
What are you talking about, sugar tits?
Yeah. So he decided to cast Tom Hardy. I think with how feral they fucking made Mad Max in this movie, I think Tom Hardy was a perfect choice, because Tom Hardy can just he'll be in a movie like Inception where he'll be suave as fuck, and then he'll do a movie like this where he is just completely fucking unhinged. So I think he was a good choice for Mad Max.
Yeah, no, he's absolute perfect casting for Mad Max, I think. And I would love to see him again.
Me too. I think he's so good in the role.
I don't know. He was legendarily a dick on set. I don't know if he dicked his way out of the role or if they would bring him back. But I don't know.
Maybe they also, because of their obvious connection to Furiosa as a character, I could see them making it just another Furiosa movie, especially with how insanely popular Anya Taylor-Joy is now.
And how popular Furiosa was.
Exactly.
I mean, just why not?
So to me, what might be the most surprising performance of the movie, just because I'd always thought Nicholas Hoult was fine, but when you see how much range he has as Nux in this, he is also unhinged in a very, very different way. In this versus, comparing him to someone, like Tom Hardy as Max. I am super stoked. I don't know if you had heard about this. Did you know Nicholas Hoult was cast as Lex Luthor in James Gunn's upcoming Superman movie? I really like that choice. I think he could do some really great work in that type of character.
It's gonna be real weird when Lex Luthor busts out the can of spray paint.
Witness me as he's got kryptonite.
He walks in with both of his hands in his suit jacket pocket, and he pulls out in one hand a Jolly Rancher and another one just his can of spray paint.
You know what I would do, by the way, if I was Nicholas Hoult? What's that?
I would walk around the set constantly offering people Jolly Ranchers. I would just nonstop walk around with a bag of Jolly Ranchers, be like, Jolly Rancher? Anytime I pass by someone.
How many people do you think walk up to Jesse Eisenberg
and offer him Jolly Ranchers?
And offer him Jolly Ranchers? It's got to be at least 15 people every 30 minutes.
How many people have mailed him a jar of piss, you think?
Well, the night is still young, so you never know.
The night is still young, and I gotta go as soon as we're done recording.
I'll be back. Nicholas Hoult is also in probably my most anticipated movie next year, Nosferatu, which I can't fucking wait.
What did you think of him in Deadpool?
Are you talking about which character?
Isn't he the guy that couldn't feel pain?
No, they look incredibly similar,
really?
But it's a different actor. Yeah. In Deadpool, you are thinking of. I'm pulling up the listing right here. I know exactly what you're talking about, especially when they're both bald. They look incredibly similar. But it's Ed Skrein who is Ajax.
Okay. He's Beast. He's in Deadpool 2. He's Beast.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But they look very, very similar.
Wasn't he, before I fucked this up, wasn't he also... I'm probably not going to find it. Wasn't he also, or was it the other guy also? Wasn't he, what? God damn it, I can't think of the name of the movie. The Transporter series. Or is that the other guy also?
I think that was also Ed Skrein.
Wow.
So they look so similar though. I can't fault you for it, but I'm pretty sure that was also Ed Skrein.
Oh, dude. Nicholas Hoult was Captain America and Harry Potter on Robot Chicken. That's worth looking up.
Yeah.
That's worth looking up.
Yeah, I really like Nicholas Hoult in this. He has to go through so much in this movie because he's such a colossal shithead, but for them to make him likable by the end is kind of nuts because he's such an what they strap Max into at the beginning, is really brutal to have. Because so the idea behind their characters is they constantly talk about their half-life because they're terminal. They're so just decrepit that he literally needs to strap Max to the front of his car to use him as an active body bag just to stay upright. And they fucking strap Mad Max to the front of the car with a steel muzzle just to add insult to injury to it. Because, fucking uncomfortable. Dude, Tom Hardy was probably a dick on set because he had to wear that goddamn muzzle on his face for 6 months. I'd be fucking pissed too because that thing looked uncomfortable as all hell.
One of the best lines in the movie is when he sees his car entering the battle. And he's just like, first they take my blood and then my car. What else can they take from me? The car's the bigger deal than his blood.
I also really like where he's like, that's my jacket. Later when he gets his jacket back. Yeah.
When they show up in his car again, he's like, that's mine. Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. I also love the fact that one of the main characters is called Toast. That's Toast the Knowing. We got to talk about the naming conventions for just Mad Max characters in general. I've always loved that about Mad Max.
First off, can we just talk about Max Rockatansky?
It's so good.
That's such a good name.
Have you seen the original Mad Max movies, Ron?
I own them.
Have you seen them?
Yeah, I own them. It's been several years since I've seen them, but yeah.
The villain in the Road Warrior being Lord Humongous.
Yes.
I fucking love it. Just walk away. Just walk away. I love Road Warrior. Mad Max, the first one, I think is okay. I'm not a big Thunderdome guy, but I love the Road Warrior. That was always my favorite one until Fury Road came out. That's also something to talk about too. This is the best Mad Max movie by far, and it was a fourth one in the series made 30 years later. How often does that happen? Never. Fucking never.
I can tell you why it happens. I have had this conversation with you several times, and it involves the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, where you don't need to outdo the first movie. You just need to aim to be at the same level as the first movie, right? You don't need to try to one-up anything. And I scrolled up for the casting news, but I had a thing from George Miller where he was talking about in an interview where his goal was not to one-up the original trilogy, but to harken back to the original trilogy was his goal.
Yeah, and they do it flawlessly because it is so in the spirit of Mad Max. It is just cranked up to 12.
Yeah, he said he wanted to harken back to the original trilogy, and he wanted to do it with like updated techniques or something, or more modern techniques.
And just a bigger budget, because they were some of his very first projects he made, period. So for Mad Max, the first one, to have as like high of a quality with its action sequences as it does is astounding. But with it being like, to me, they don't try to like raise the stakes too high, because this is like a really, really personal story too. It's just like what the story always was with the original Mad Max movies. It's just Mad Max.
He's always just kind of passing through, right?
He's just passing through. He finds some person or some group of people who need his help, and that is always the story.
And he begrudgingly helps them.
Just like you said, like it is again harkening back to the very minimal storytelling that he always made with these movies, because you don't need to like raise the stakes and have it be, how many film franchises, like to your point, 30 years later, this plot line would have been about saving the world. Yeah. Something very, very grand and completely like off kilter compared to the rest of what came before it. And I 10,000% agree with you. Like, I think he keeps it in the spirit and keeps it at the same scale. But what cranks it up to 12 is just how fucking well made the action sequences are and how well they're shot. And it's just mesmerizing movie making. Do you think Mad Max itself had any influence on The Walking Dead? Because it's a lot of similar concepts. The world is fucked. There's nothing we can do about it. All of us are The Walking Dead in Mad Max and in The Walking Dead. Yeah, I could see it.
It's people at their worst, but some people like either finding or rediscovering their humanity. It's kind of an ongoing theme through that show and this movie franchise.
Yep.
And that show and that comic. Like, I can just see, and then the communities that people enter into and how the characters just kind of pass through. I wonder what kind of influence this has had on anything related to The Walking Dead.
It's interesting.
Not just Fury Road, but the original trilogy.
Specifically the originals.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Hugh Keays-byrne passed away a few years ago, but God damn, is he good as a Morton Joe? A Morton Joe. I
didn't realize he passed away. That's not the one I was talking about earlier.
Oh, really? Who did you find out that had passed away?
I was talking about Richard Carter, the Bullet Farmer.
Oh God, I thought you were talking about a Morton Joe. Yeah, Morton Joe, the actor, passed away in 2020.
He wasn't a Morton at all.
I love their goofy fucking naming conventions for the characters. I think I started that point earlier, but we got sidetracked. But you can tell like how much of their bullshit at their Citadel thing is just them being in charge but being colossal fucking idiots.
Yeah.
You know, because a Morton Joe, you know, Imperator Furiosa, he's just making shit up as he goes along. And they all buy it because he's in charge and he has the water supply, and that's literally like all that he has to run this entire fucking town, city. They're kind of like vague on just how many goddamn people live at their little Citadel thing, because the the fucking infrastructure of the city is like a Demon Souls level. It's like 12,000 feet tall in the mountains, and there's all of those goddamn caves. It reminds me of, you remember in the first like Hobbit movie when they're in those like weird cavern structures?
Yeah.
And it's like they're inside a mountain, but it's an Ewok village simultaneously. That they have like a little bit of that going on. And I don't understand why, but
yeah,
it's bonkers.
Yeah. And Morton Joe, his imagination was mediocre.
So good.
I fucking dude. That's another one of those moments that we were talking about. One of those moments of comedy in the movie is they have this huge buildup, and then he snags the chain that's been wrapped around his wrist the whole fucking movie. Mediocre.
The music is also great right there, because they're ratcheting up the music intensity as he's, you know, being sprayed by a Morton Joe, and you think this insanely epic thing's about to happen, and then he just trips. It's so good. And that is, you know, part of what it's funny, you know, it's played up for comedic purposes, but it's really important for his character. It's really important for his character. It completely shifts his focus away from just constantly wanting, because he feels he's lost his one chance to earn meaning, you know, because they're like, how long do you think their life expectancy is for, you know, like the War Boys and everything? Like, it's pretty fucking grim.
We never saw an old one.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Like, they live just to commit suicide in battle, basically.
Yep. He thinks he's lost his one shot to have relevance as a human, which is, you know, crazy.
If I can make a case real quick for the Oxford comma, can you go to IMDb and witness the description of this movie?
I'm looking at it.
Does it not make Mad Max sound like a psychotic worshiper?
A little bit. My IMDb is fucking up. It's not letting me read the full description, unfortunately.
In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman rebels against a tyrannical ruler in search for her homeland with the aid of a group of female prisoners, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter named Max. It almost makes Max sound like he is a group of female prisoners, comma, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there, because I had to read that twice before I understood what it was saying, because there's no goddamn Oxford comma.
I am also team Oxford comma, and I died inside every time I would have an article published on CPR, and they would fucking they would remove my Oxford comma, and I wanted to just go punch a wall, because I am team Oxford comma.
Man. So, okay, we didn't make it through the cast yet, dude. Let's do that before we move on, because I want to talk about some things.
Of course. So what we have remaining are mostly the supporting characters who are the wives of Morton Joe. We have
good God, could you imagine?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking grim. Rosie Huntington-Whiteley plays Splendid. Riley Keough plays, what is her character? They have some crazy fucking weird names. Capable is her name.
Apparently.
Abby Lee is the Dag. What are these? The names are so bizarre. You have Courtney Eaton playing Cheeto the Fragile, not Cheeto, but Cheeto with a D. Also weird. Yeah. What do you think is? And we mentioned earlier how Zoe Kravitz is playing Toast the Knowing. It's like the way like fucking Post Malone got his rapper name by just putting in a fucking name generator, you know.
I need the IMDb photos just to see who the fuck these people are, because I don't.
It's very bizarre.
I can't tell who anyone is by the character names.
It also just shows like how fucking stupid a Morton Joe really is, just based on some of the names that he's probably forced his wives to be renamed as. I think that's why, you know how they always talk about how Rosie Huntington is his favorite and her name is Splendid. So I think he has personally renamed all of them as his wives. And Yeah, there's a lot of really, really dark background going on with these characters that they
Well, I mean,
obviously allude to, but
that
yeah,
is
there is.
further showing ownership, right? Renaming them.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, it's another thing that is very, very blink and you miss it. But the chastity belts
yeah.
are
Oh, that's not a
really,
blink and you miss it. They put it
really
front and center.
well. It's also, but what I mean by that is they don't elaborate further on it. You know, it's just there, and it's all subtext. It's not
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
It didn't need to be elaborated on.
yeah. There's a lot of really, really gross, really dark shit happening at the Citadel that they just briefly touch on. I love Ron has sent me the Blu-ray set where you have the fucking Immortan Joe mask that's just so metal.
So good.
It's so good. I love the names of some of the supporting characters in Immortan Joe's army. Man, how awesome are the names the People Leader and the Bullet Farmer? It's so cool.
It's so good.
I love it. The fucking Doof Warrior, man. What a name.
The
What an
Doof
icon.
Warrior.
What a fucking icon.
I can't help but imagine like a Bidoof with a rifle and some armor. Oh my god. The Doof.
It's so good. Yeah, so what were some of the alternate castings that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, this is good, dude. So 1987, right? We were looking at, hang on, let me come back down here to production. The idea that George Miller was floating around. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't 87. It was the 2000s. The idea he was floating around was Mel Gibson for Max and Sigourney Weaver for Furiosa. That's a movie I want to see.
That's interesting, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Could you imagine? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's kind of what we got through the spirit of Charlize Theron. Because if you had to make me name a Sigourney Weaver replacement in anything, it would probably be Charlize Theron. She's got that kind of vibe and energy to her.
Yeah, she has that quiet intensity.
Yes,
that Sigourney Weaver always had.
Yes, and she's really good at speaking with her body language and her facial expressions, and we're used to seeing Sigourney Weaver dirty also, so you know.
She also can put on a face where you instantly do not want to fuck with her, and they're both very similar in that, because there are some scenes in this movie where if looks could kill, dude, Furiosa would have a goddamn body count bigger than what's already in the movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, on top of that, like the more I think about it, you know, canonically, like some of the games are considered part of the Alien universe. If they ever do anything with Ripley's daughter, I think Charlize Theron would be pretty good.
I can see it.
Because that's who you play as in like Alien Isolation, and that is supposed to be canon.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anyways, so they had announced in 2010 they're going to start making the movie. That's the same month, which was August 2010. They announced that Tom Hardy was in negotiations and that Charlize Theron would be playing a major role. But here's the finalists for Mad Max: Tom Hardy, Armie Hammer, Jeremy Renner, Michael Fassbender, Joel Kinnaman, Heath Ledger, Eric Bana, and rapper Eminem.
Eminem? Really?
And then it has in parentheses, who did not want to leave the United States.
What? Maybe he saw the mask muzzle thing he'd have to wear for 3 months of filming. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm good. I'll just stay over here. That's great. Each one of those makes for such a drastically different movie.
Right?
It's interesting.
Armie Hammer, I see it. I could see it. I don't think it'd be as good as Tom Hardy, but I could see this same movie with Armie Hammer in it. I think Michael Fassbender is a completely different movie. Eric Bana is a completely different movie, probably a different genre. Eminem, we wouldn't have the score. We would have whatever single he made for the movie. I as much as I like them, I do not see Jeremy Renner, Fassbender, or Kinnaman, or Ledger.
I don't think
Now, I could see Heath Ledger as a villain, but
yeah,
I don't see any of them as Mad Max.
you need, if you were going down the route,
And notice we didn't get them as Mad Max.
if you're going down the route of him being as feral as he is, when I see,
I mean, Armie
Jeremy-
Hammer eats people
it's pretty metal.
and pretty feral.
You gotta hand it to him.
No, don't. You won't get the hand back.
He didn't get the part because they already had casted the People Eater in Mad Max Fury Road.
He ate the casting director.
But I don't think Jeremy Renner always just has this inherent likableness about him.
And you're not supposed to like Mad Max.
He's supposed to be the very definition of anti-hero.
Yes.
And he's supposed to be he like several scenes of him aiming guns at
Pregnant women?
pregnant women, he's not a likable dude. You
Now,
understand his reasoning.
Granted, he knew that gun wouldn't fire the first time.
Yes,
But
it is. But he also gets pistols later, where he knows they're loaded. But you also know that
why isn't that a tagline? He gets pistols later. Mad Max, he gets pistols later.
He just always has this unpredictability about him that you need, and you've seen Tom Hardy play, villains and good guys. He wasn't purely kind of typecasted as
Right.
Certain character tropes and like types of characters that some of those are actors for. So yeah, those are fascinating. I hadn't heard of most of those. I heard a couple of them.
This movie came out in 2015. So Jeremy Renner was already Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that didn't work for me at all, bruh.
I think
on any level.
So when they were originally, they filmed this a while before it actually hit theaters. I think they actually had casted the bulk of the leads in around 2010.
Yeah,
So
August 2010. So
I don't think he had been, because Avengers was 2012.
When was Thor though? We saw Hawkeye and Thor.
I think Thor was 2011. So it was right around that same time. Yeah. So he had, Thor was 2011.
He hadn't
so
had his big comeback yet.
He hadn't had the Hawkeye kind of break out yet.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. But man, I think Tom Hardy was the perfect choice.
And now, I mean, he wasn't then, but now I could never separate Joel Kinnaman from Altered Carbon, I think.
Altered Carbon season 1 is so fucking good.
I didn't see season 2. I wanted to.
It's okay.
When they canceled it, I was like, well, fuck, I know there's 3 books. Why would I go into season 2 now?
Yeah.
So I just never got around to it because they canceled it before doing season 3.
I also missed Joel Kinnaman because I love Anthony Mackie and he does a good job, but I like Joel Kinnaman's version of the character better in the first season. Also, just the storyline of season 1 was a lot better.
Well,
so I think that was a big part of it.
The thing that would be difficult to me is in the book, he changes bodies all the time, but he's the same character. So
Right.
Anthony Mackie would have to be pretending to be Joel Kinnaman. And that's usually not what actors do. You hire an actor so they can bring whatever flavor they bring to your project. So
yeah, it was a difficult task as far as casting that series. I know it kind of like it's counter to the spirit of the novels and the core concept of the show. I would have just continued using Joel Kinnaman. Just right away to make it work. You can. It's sci-fi. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, just
have them clone him. Just have them fucking clone the body of the first guy, and then it's still Joel Kinnaman, and then we don't have an issue. But it wouldn't have mattered because it still would have fucking got canceled because it's Netflix. So
But that trailer was fucking awesome. His reflection being Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah,
that was really.
It wasn't
neat.
bad. It wasn't bad. I just think like the first season of Altered Carbon is one of the better seasons of sci-fi the past several years. Granted, we don't get very much of it, but it was damn good.
Check out the first book too.
Yeah, since I watched the first 2 seasons of the show, and I need to be able to just see like the ending of the story because I haven't read the books yet. I've only seen the show, so I need to either listen to the audiobooks or find those novels and read them.
The first book is real good.
Just real quickly, we talked several times about the cinematography, the music, and editing and everything. I just wanted to credit everybody. So the music is done by Tom Holkenborg, who his AKA name is Junkie XL. He did a shit ton of movie scores over the past like several years. He's been all over the place. The cinematography was done by John Seal. Editing was done by Margaret Sixel. And man, this movie won 6 Oscars, should have won more to me. I think they won literally every fucking technical award you can get.
It's a very technical film. They literally use people from Cirque du Soleil. They have 150, right? I think it was like 150 stunt people, and there's a handful of them that are from Cirque du Soleil, and I guarantee you they're the people in the poles.
There's also probably a few of them that are still buried out there, and they just lost track.
Desert?
Yeah, they just lost track.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie, man. The almost ironic thing about this movie, it's got a lot going on theming wise. There's a lot of feminist themes and stuff that are really good. But the thing that harkens through all of the main characters and all of our supporting characters is all of them kind of rediscover or regain their humanity a little bit, including our war boy. He finds his purpose and he regains a little bit of his humanity. And the fact that this movie can take something as dumb as "Witness Me" and turn it into a line that makes me cry. Dude,
it's so sad.
His last words, like his voice, his line delivery on the way he says "witness me,"
because it's great writing, because the character thought process behind "witness me" is going out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah,
and that's what you're seeking, is that moment of glory.
But what he was missing was a reason to go out in that blaze of glory, and he found it in her.
But what's also sad about it is that's all he wanted, was to be witness and go out in a blaze of glory. But when he does, he doesn't want to go. He wants to stay to be with her, and it's really tragic.
Yeah, it's got a lot of David Tennant energy now that you say those words.
Because he doesn't want to. Because he knows he has to save them all, but he doesn't want to go. But that's all he wanted to do beforehand. So it's really good, right? It's very subtle. It's very minimal, but it's really well executed. And Nicholas Hoult, just like all the emotion he has on his face as he's about to die, is really sad and really well done.
And he keeps his eyes on her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she witnesses him.
Yeah. And they end that scene showing the fucking fire guitar.
Yeah,
and the movie never jumps the shark.
Yeah,
and it totally should.
The fire
like 1,000 times over
at you and then rebounds back because it's on the cables.
That's one of the things that they have the score sync to, I think, is when he's hitting Rictus with the flame guitar.
Yeah.
And I fucking love this movie so much, man. It's so fucking good. There's so many moments in this movie where it brings back the energy of you smiling at the action movie like you were when you were an idiot 15-year-old, and I love that about it. Because do you remember when you were younger, you were a teenager, and you could sit down and just turn your fucking stupid brain off and watch an action movie, and just grin like an idiot? This has that just amped up tenfold, and I love it for it.
I mean, this isn't even going to seem like a comparison at this point, but do you remember the first time you saw Terminator 2, which is wildly held as one of the greatest action movies of all time?
If not the greatest action movie
of all time. If not the greatest.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you that same feeling back, because that movie, it watches differently now, but the first time you saw that movie, if you recall, it felt like this movie. It felt like it didn't slow down. It felt like it didn't stop. It had moments of levity through comedy. It had the one-liners, and it had chase sequences, and it had fucking robots punching each other. And yeah, like that movie it had special effects you'd never seen before in a movie.
Yeah, it's a good comparison, because it also just...
I felt like a kid watching Terminator 2 again for the first time, probably way too young.
And also, one thing they share that I think is a real driving force for them both is Terminator 2 is also based around its simplicity. You know,
Yeah.
Terminator 2, bad robot going after kid, needs to be protected by good robot. That's your fucking plot.
Terminator 2, good robot punches bad robot.
Yeah. And it's one of the best movies of all time.
Yep. We need to get those movies on this show.
Have we not had Terminator on here?
We haven't had a single Terminator on this show.
We fucking suck at our job, man.
Well,
we fucking suck.
Well, you and I both have seen it, and we both love them. So, you know, the whole thing about this podcast started with us showing each other movies. But
Right.
they do deserve to sidestep the premise of this podcast and just get on the show so we can talk about them. Because they deserve to be celebrated.
Yeah, they've had so many of them that it would be tough to do individual franchise coverage like we've done with Lord of the Rings.
You know me and my redemption episodes. I like the Terminator films, all of them to some degree, and I will defend all of them. So yeah, we could do 1 and 2, and then I can just occasionally bring up one.
For sure. I like most of them too. I think the only one, granted, I haven't seen it in a long time. I think the only one that I was kind of about was the third one. But I also just haven't seen it but the one time.
I'm
and it was
willing
a million
to
years
bet.
Ago.
I'm willing to bet it's better than you remember.
I remember really liking the way the ending is set up. The ending is really cool.
It may not be good. It may not be your favorite movie of all time, but I guarantee you it's better than what you're remembering. And I'm not just saying that to you. I'm saying that to anyone listening. I'm willing to bet Terminator 3 is better than you remember.
Yeah, I definitely didn't dislike it. It was just one of those.
The TX was awesome, by the way, and that chick that played the TX, she was great.
I always wanted to watch the TV show.
It's on Hulu.
The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Is that the name of the show?
Yes, it is one of the hardest things to find. And because of the writer's strike, everybody was grasping for things.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, I don't remember if it was you, if it was Chris, someone pointed out a whole bunch of old shit hit all the streaming services, some of them very rare and hard to find, like the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And someone pointed out to me, well, there was a writer's strike that needed content.
Right.
So I guarantee you that is why they dusted off the Sarah Connor Chronicles. But I'm going to double check that. But I am pretty sure it's on one of the services I have. I've seen it. It's in my list. I will be watching it. Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. It is. 2 seasons on Hulu.
People really shit talked the most recent Dark Fate one. I liked the Dark Fate.
I liked Dark Fate.
Lot. I liked it a lot too.
And it was a good kind of soft reboot that kind of picked up the pieces of the other movies because the timeline is fucked up. And in that movie, the timeline is fucked up. Like, everything was fucked up in Genesis. That was kind of where everything came to a head because we fucked with time too much. Yeah. And then the soft reboot of it is it's a different AI doing things for different reasons. We didn't really win the war. We kind of lost the war. And like, yeah, Dark Fate was good. I liked where they picked up the pieces of what was around and went with it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I need to watch it again.
That was a movie that you and I walked out of the theater talking about the sound design.
Oh man, it was so good.
I mean,
it was similar to this where it has moments that are they're striking with how good the sound mixing is.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just scrolling back through photos of snippets from Mad Max Fury Road.
Why are there 3,000 photos?
I'm scrolling through them now. At least 1,500 of them are red carpet photos.
Oh, okay.
Also, there's a photo where Mel Gibson was there. I don't know if he was invited. He might have just snuck onto the red carpet and been like, yeah, it's a Mad Max movie. I'm Mad Max, man.
He might have just heard something about chastity belts coming off and showed up.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
My goodness.
Did you see where George Miller talked about how they already had a ton of the vehicles already made because they made them in 1987 when they were originally talking about making this movie?
And it's perfect, too, because that's what the vehicles are supposed to look like. They're supposed to look, the fucking world has ended. All the vehicles they're driving around are what, like 70 years old by them in their time. It's perfect. It's like the ridiculousness of some of the vehicles too adds so much charm to it.
Why was Jane Seymour at the red carpet event for Mad Max Fury Road?
I don't
Jane
know.
Seymour went to okay. Yeah,
I've got nothing.
I mean, it makes sense. I can never say this name. Guillermo del Toro.
Oh,
It makes sense he'd be there, sure. But I'm scratching my head at Jane Seymour deciding to show up to the premiere of Fury Road.
I got nothing. How awesome, by the way, is the idea of him being a blood bag serves like a third act plot importance.
Yeah.
That seems very throwaway, just kind of there for shock value, but it's important for the ending. And that's really cool. I forgot about that when I watched this viewing.
And they did the thing where they explained away a potential plot issue without explaining it, because they literally tattoo on his back that he is a universal donor.
Yep.
So he can give to anyone.
So good. Another really, really metal scene. How good is it when I believe it's the bullet farmer, he gets
blinded?
He gets blinded by a sniper shot from Furiosa.
Okay, first off, and then another moment played up for comedy, because our hero, quote unquote, takes 2 shots, only has 1 left, and misses both of them. Looks at her, and then she's just staring at him. He takes aim for the final shot, and then he can't bring himself to pull the trigger because he doesn't think he's going to hit it. He just hands her the rifle.
And he knows for sure she will.
He knows that she will hit it. And he's just like, just begrudgingly hands her the rifle without her saying a word.
It's great. But then he follows that scene up where he's like, I know what I'm fucking good at. He goes and has this crazy action sequence, and it all happens off screen, and I love
camera, the balls of this movie.
It all happens off screen. He goes and takes out the fucking, like, one of the main supporting characters as far as, like, who's one of the lieutenants, essentially, in the Immortan Joe army. It goes and he takes out their entire group off screen, and all you see is the fucking explosion and him walking back covered in blood, and they ask him if he's okay, and she just... right, and he's carrying the bag full of extra guns and shit too, and and they ask him if he's okay because of the blood, and Furiosa just says it's not his.
Well, what's even better?
I love it.
What's even better is when she says, "Are you hurt?" and he just stares at her, and she goes, "You're bleeding," and he just grunts at her like he doesn't understand what she's saying to him, and then Furiosa just goes, "It's not his blood."
It's so good. I love it. It's such a fucking like you said. It's so confident.
Is there an underlying allegory or metaphor happening there when he washes the blood off of his face with mother's milk?
Yeah,
Is there something I'm missing?
I've seen that discussed before, but to me that becomes like, I think it's fine to be there as a kind of subtext for it, but I think if you dig into that too deeply, I think that is trying to apply too much of an elevated discussion about allegory to Mad Max Fury Road, which the movie has depth to it, but I don't think it's striking. I don't think it's like seeking to make. It's just what they have to trade
for fuel and for bullets, right?
Yeah, a lot of people have really made a deep dive into that, and I don't think it's really necessary or what the movie is really trying to say. I don't think it's trying to be that deep with its allegory. You know, it has depth. I don't think it's trying to be like an art house conversation.
Yeah. What about this movie screams art house to anyone?
Exactly. So like, why are people having that? I mean, just grasping at straws.
This idea even started with George Miller as an almost unbroken car chase, beginning to end.
Yeah.
So nothing about it is going to be that deep. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. They found ways to bring in deep meaning to things, right? But the original concept of the movie was he was just like, I want to make an entire movie that is a single car chase. That was what happened. That is how this movie was birthed.
I wanted to make an entire movie that was a single car chase. They wouldn't let me do it with the Penguins, so I'm going to do it with Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy in the desert.
Oh, man. I just found something, Jeff.
Oh, what'd you find?
You're about to see it.
God, I'm always terrified when you send me shit in the Discord because I have no idea what I'm in for.
Oh no, you'll like this one.
I have no idea. Dude, the score when the blinded when he screams, "I am the scales of justice" as he's blindly shooting. Good. And then it turns into what is that? It's like a classical musical tune, but I don't remember what they're doing. It's like, but it's like this. I can't even explain it, but it's glorious, and I love it. I love it dearly. I am the scales of justice as he shoots blindly into the desert.
Yeah,
I love it. I fucking love it. It's so absurd in all the best ways imaginable. I think I'm honestly kind of out of talking points because the movie just speaks for itself. It has to.
There's not a lot. This movie's incredibly complex, but overall, there's not a lot to it. Also, so
yeah.
there's not a lot to be said, other than that was great. This was great. It was great.
It's perfect.
The most Dark Souls image I've ever seen in a movie, I think, comes from this movie. I just sent it to you in the Discord.
Is it the crow people walking in the?
No,
that's something. They look like fucking Dark Souls bosses, man.
They look like Bloodborne enemies that you would just going around through a poison swamp.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Which they are going through a poison swamp.
Yeah.
I am going to send you this talking point real quick. I forgot about the opening to this movie. This is the first time that it subverts your expectations with what's happening on screen. Because you totally think this is his big escape. And the fact that he jumps out, wrangles that crane hook as it's going up, and they pull him back in and lock him away. Like he almost escapes, and then it's like, where's he going to go? You don't know. It's Mad Max. He'll find a way out.
Right.
But there's also something to be said about the fact that he's talking about how basically he has no humanity left at this point in his narration. He's talking about he's just a man boiled down to one last surviving instinct, and that is survival. But at the end of the movie, he does get away, and it's after he's regained or rediscovered some of his humanity. There's something to be said there if you wanted to go art house with it.
Exactly.
Because, he's kind of trapped until he gets over some of the stuff, right? But also, I didn't notice till I sent to this image. Those are ambulance doors, Jeff.
I never noticed that.
Those are ambulance doors on the cliffside.
That's a cool detail. I did not notice that.
But yeah,
now that he's constantly having flashes of the little girl, which is his daughter. I forget, did they have his daughter as a character in the first movie and she died in the first one, or did that happen off screen in the first one? I guess I can't remember.
It has been probably 30 years 20 years since I have watched those movies. I don't know. I think the world has already ended when the first movie starts. I think it happened off screen in his history.
Okay.
As what I think. Because I don't think we ever see the world as it was in any of the movies.
Yeah, you know what? I want to watch the first movie again because I haven't seen the first movie in probably 10 to 15 years myself. So I remember certain aspects of it, but I haven't seen it multiple times like I have Fury Road, so I don't have it ingrained in my memory at all. So I need to watch it.
And the one that was always on TV was Thunderdome. So it's probably the one I've seen the most outside of Fury Road.
What are your thoughts? Do you remember liking Thunderdome? Because I was very about Thunderdome. Thunderdome it becomes a little bit too cartoonish for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like all the Mad Max movies.
I don't dislike it. It's just a little bit. I think it goes a little bit too far over the edge with its kind of silliness.
I remember it being the weakest, but at this point, I couldn't tell you why. You know what I mean? It's just been too long.
I also just really fucking dug the Road Warrior. So when you have a Road Warrior is great, when you have a classic like that to follow on the heels of it, just like with Terminator 2 and Terminator 3, it's a losing battle from the get-go. I love that image of the fucking guitar. Man, yeah. There's nothing else to say. It's just a perfect fucking movie, and I am so excited for Furiosa. As soon as I saw that trailer, I didn't know fucking anybody that was gonna be in the sequel. I didn't even know they were actually finally getting around to making a sequel.
Dude.
And when I saw that the trailer had dropped, I lost my shit, and I knew I had to get this on the podcast as soon as possible.
You texted me and asked me if I've seen that trailer, and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Right? It came out of nowhere. They just dropped the fucking trailer. I had no idea that they were not only making the movie, but they had gotten Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy for it.
Oh, here it is.
Looks incredible.
Here it is. Here's your goddamn crows, son.
Oh, did you find the creepy crow people?
I found it. This is a poison swamp right out of Bloodborne.
Look at the fucking the shades of blue.
I love it.
It's a gorgeous. That's like a fucking wallpaper for your computer, man.
This has to be
gorgeous.
This has to be filmed during the day with a filter, right?
I think all of the blue is a specific filter they have made to make it look like nighttime. I agree.
I think the orange that we see also is a filter.
Yeah, for sure.
But man,
color correction, that was the term I was thinking of. Yeah,
so
it's incredible.
If you would go to that image on IMDb and go for the next two, it is her staring directly at the camera at our war boy, and the next one is him pointing at her saying, "Witness me," back to back.
Damn.
Yeah. 558 and 557 on IMDb.
What a fucking movie.
Oh, also, the movie calls back to itself before the start of the third act in the best way, because he is so feral at the beginning of the movie with "My name is Max," and we get the same shot again, but instead of the car, it's the motorcycle, and the war rig is there, and he's watching the women ride away on their motorcycles into the salt lands, and we basically get the opening of the movie again, but at this point, he has kind of come out of being feral a little bit and regained part of his humanity, and he just cannot watch them drive off into what he knows will be their death.
Yeah.
He just can't do it. He wants to. He can't.
He's made it's like a turning point, because he's no longer running away from something. He's running away like to something. He has like a newfound purpose.
I was going to say, again, for a purpose, the same as our war boy, right? Furiosa found her purpose before the movie even started. That's what started this whole thing. She's saving the wives, and she gets a new purpose thrust on her, because I kind of get the feeling that she's the leader of the Citadel now.
Pretty much. Because she was an Imperator, it's a very high-ranking thing. They bring back the corpse of Immortan Job, so there's going to be like a line of succession. And the first thing they do when they get back is give out water, so like they're going to be beloved by all the people. So like,
they didn't even really do that. Wasn't that the ladies being milked?
I can't remember.
That's who I thought it was, because they're still in the elevator being brought up.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like the first thing they all do when they get back is they have like a changing of the guard, and it's no longer this really oppressive atmosphere. So like they're all beloved, and yeah, I agree. I think she's kind of like the new.
And you want to talk about feral? I mean, what happens when they drop Immortan Joe's corpse?
It's crazy. It's so brutal.
But no.
Can we talk about like the way Furiosa kills Immortan Joe is one of the single most metal kills in any movie of all time.
Not only
the first time you see that, the first time I saw that in the theater when we first saw this movie, I lost my shit, because it is so unbelievably fucking metal. And the pacing of it is actually really well done, because of the way the movie works and how extended the car chases are. It ends more abruptly than you think it would, in like a good way.
Yeah.
Because you think and you feel from someone who's watched the lead up to when she kills him. Oh, this chase is gonna go on for another 10 minutes, but no, it doesn't. She fucking ends him in the most awesome, brutal metal fashion.
For how metal and brutal this movie is, it's really not gory. That's really the only real instance of gore.
Right. Yeah, they're very subdued with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, here's the other image I was looking for. But no, they with Furiosa, man. I mean, do we need Mad Max? Have we not finished Mad Max's storyline probably at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I could always see them. I could see them, maybe bringing back Tom Hardy again for another one.
Which I'm
But
all for.
well, I agree. I really like him as his character, but I also just think that you could almost see them making additional spin-offs, even if it wasn't Furiosa. Like you can always, because they called it in the official Furiosa tagline, like the titling for it is it's called the Mad Max Saga, and I think you can do additional stories even if they weren't Furiosa, just because it's a crazy setting, it's a cool world. I hope they don't try to make them without George Miller, because I think you have to be a crazy person like George Miller to be able to pull off these action sequences, and that is the bread and butter of the movie. So I don't think it works without him, but I'm down for whatever spinoff they do with whatever character, as long as it's George Miller and as long as it's still this level of batshit. Man, when a Morton joke, it's fucking.
I found a still for you.
When the way he gets killed is metal as hell.
Yeah, I got my last thought back. I'm assuming. So we don't know, and we never talk about how she lost her arm, and she has that. Help me out, Jeff. What's the word I'm looking for? Prosthetic.
Yeah.
She has that prosthetic arm that I'm assuming was given to her by Immortan Joe. And that is the thing that she basically uses to kill him. She throws it under the wheel when it was all tangled up and wrapped up in his hoses and the cabling and stuff. Oh, man. That image is so brutal. Part of his nose went with it.
Yep, because he's all.
I knew
it's
that.
It's like a Bane mask.
I have to ask. Was Aurora watching it then?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I think she cupped her hand over her mouth and was just like in awe of the fucking brutality of it, dude. It's a Mortal Kombat kill.
It is.
It's a fatality, dude.
It's a fatality. Furiosa wins.
Finish him.
Finish him.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
one of my other favorite moments, and it reminds me of my favorite moment in the first. God, my brain is shutting down. The first Last of Us game is when they pull up. The chick is up in the tower naked, like she's trapped, and Mad Max just shuts everything down and goes, "That's bait."
That's bait.
Because remember when the people come out begging for help in the first Last of Us, and Joel's like, "Fasten your seatbelt," and she goes, "What?" And he goes, "Fasten your seatbelt."
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's so good. Perfection. One of the best movies the past 15 years.
But
easy.
Yeah, the that other screenshot that I sent you, we have the end of the movie and the beginning of the movie. Like, look at the difference. Like, not only is the character different, the lighting is different. The sky is less angry. The lighting, the image itself is brighter now that he has found some of his humanity again and wants to help people. He's found a purpose. Like, there's a lot going on in these two images side by side.
Yeah.
It's almost God rays coming out when he decides to be the good guy.
It's really well done. I like this kind of imagery better than I like the discourse about the mother's milk.
Yeah,
that I think goes too far in the direction of art house, which I think is not intended and not necessary.
Sometimes the door is red because the door is red. You know?
Yeah. It's not everything is a symbol for something else. Sometimes it's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of touched on everything. Was there any other kind of final thoughts you had on it before we start signing off?
No, like you said, there's not a lot to say because there's not a lot of standing still in this movie. It does a lot with very little. And I don't mean very little as far as techniques go, filming techniques, stunt work, spectacle, anything like that. I mean little as in there's no real dialogue to sit down and talk about. It's all visual spectacle. There's not a lot to be said. You literally have to see it to understand it. And at this point, I can't imagine someone who hasn't seen this movie. But I mean, if you haven't, like, you're not going to understand a goddamn thing we're talking about.
You just have to. It's a thrill ride.
It has to be experienced.
And I love the fact that it's 2 hours long.
And it feels like 10 minutes.
And it feels like 10 minutes. That's my ultimate thing I'm looking for. Anytime a movie feels shorter than it actually is, it's accomplishing so much, because it just is such like a constant, just it's the motion of it is beautiful. There's literally never a dull moment to it. There's always if there's not an action scene happening, there is interesting world building happening, like with the crow people we've talked about multiple times. It's so interesting. This type of setting nowadays has become a bit of a cliche, but it never feels like a cliche at all in Mad Max, because it's so singularly weird and absurd at times, like with the fucking doof warrior dude. But I love it. I love it so much. Well, yeah, I every single time I watch this movie,
Kid in a candy store.
I'm grinning like a fucking idiot in the best way possible, and it inches its way like further up my all-time movie lists every time I watch it. I just adore it.
I think even if you're not a fan of action movies, I don't think it stands up the way Winter Soldier would for someone who's not a fan of like superhero movies. Because that movie is just a spy thriller with Captain America in it. But I think there is enough. This movie is dynamic enough and stays away from enough cliches, and it's just, like I said, it's a spectacle. I think it would still hold you all the way through the movie beginning to end, even if you're not an action movie person.
You can't help but be captivated.
There's
by
so
it.
much humanity in it. This is a movie about people rediscovering their humanity.
It doesn't give you a moment to be bored or to be distracted either. Like, you are just captivated.
Yeah.
You are on the edge of your seat from frame one to the end, and it's fucking glorious, dude.
And you would be forgiven at any point in time thinking that either Mad Max or Furiosa is going to fucking die, because they're not afraid to damage the characters in this movie.
Oh, dude, when Mad Max has his hand pinned by the steering wheel,
Jesus,
that's hard to watch. Like, you feel that, you're just like, oh.
And like, just the beginning of the movie with him, my name is Max. And then near the end of the movie with her when she's dying, and he's like, Max, my name is Max. Just redoing that line as he's desperately trying to think of a way to save her. Because he's gone this whole time without telling her his name.
I love that bit too, where she's like, when you hear me yell "fool," drive the car as fast as possible. That's a good little line they have in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
fucking
man.
Perfection, dude. I associate a lot of the cinematography with the color correction in this, but I also intend to eventually watch the black and white version just to see how it plays.
Yeah, I've never seen it. We'll have to do an update. When you watch it, let me know, and we'll talk about it at the first 20 minutes of whatever the next episode is after we watch it. Because I'd be interested to do an update.
You know what I might do is when Furiosa is about to come out, I'll do my rewatch in the black and white version before that comes out.
Okay, cool.
And then I'll report back, because I'm curious, because I think a lot of people really dug the black and white version, which it's interesting to think about.
To me,
just makes for such like a drastically different idea for the kind of visual language of everything.
Yeah, I could see that. I think a lot of it though is in the coloring of this movie. It does the same thing like people, again, I'm going to use it. When we talk about Bloodborne and Dark Souls, those are kind of the two that they have a very gray color palette, but they use it very well. Like, those games are sometimes stunning and sometimes gorgeous is the only word to describe them, but they're very gray.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the character of this movie is in the color. So I'd be interested in seeing it. I've heard Wolverine is a completely different movie, or not Wolverine, Logan is a completely different movie in black and white. And that one I've never seen either. And that one I could understand because it's basically a spaghetti Western to begin with.
Pretty much, yeah.
I could totally see that movie being completely recharacterized in black and white. Whereas this one, I think the color is just too important. The night shots with that blue filter and then the color correction during the day.
Although it's gonna be worth watching just to see the crow people in black and white, because that's got to be a fucking killer image.
Dude,
That's got to be that's some like
so we mentioned Del Toro earlier. That's up there with something he would do.
that's something Robert Eggers would do.
Oh, that's true.
And I am excited to check that out at least. But yeah, I have always been on your side of that equation as far as the black and white versions of these movies. That's why I've never gone out of my way to watch them. But I'm curious,
right?
Just to kind of see what it's like, and I feel like why the fuck not? Just go ahead and watch it just to see, because it's still Fury Road. You know, this is gonna be a different version of it, but
yeah,
I'm curious as well. I will do a quick series of plugs for our socials and everything, and then I'll turn it over to Ron to announce our next episode. So if you would like to follow the show more, we are on Twitter at SPR Filmcast, where we post all of our show updates and everything. Crazy, it's already another year down of SPR, man. Going into 2024, gotta eventually have another friends and family month. I was already having Soapy ask me earlier about when the fuck is the next time he can subject us to something.
Oh no. Well, the last time was good, so I feel like it's gonna hurt this time.
It's gonna be bad. Yeah, he had like Memories of Murder, which was a fantastic movie that he picked for us. So you know he's doubling down on the opposite end of the spectrum for the next one. So it's gonna be brutal.
And you and I talk about so much shit that we hate on this show. He's got to be just rubbing his hands together.
We provide more fucking ammunition than the bullet farmer, man. It's bad. People have so much shit they can use against us.
I am the scales of film justice.
I love that stupid fucking scene so much. It's glorious. I love it.
Oh man.
Oh man. If you've found us on YouTube, liking and subscribing is always helpful and beneficial to our channel to grow. Ratings or reviews, whichever platform you found us on, always helps as well. And share us out to your friends. That's always a huge help. Ron, if you have no other talking points for Fury Road, what are we watching next time?
I just don't give a shit anymore selecting this movie. This is a movie that this is another redemption arc for me. I'm gonna defend this movie. I don't give a fuck.
Following in the themes of Fury Road,
right?
Redemption.
Exactly. Yeah. I like this movie. I think people hate this movie for all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
It's on Hulu.
Okay.
It is 1998's Godzilla.
Okay. I haven't seen that in probably 25 years since it came out.
Since 1998?
So, since it came out, I have not seen it.
Here's the thing. Everything that everyone loves about a lot of the more current Godzilla stuff, I think what I hear people talking about, I think was done better in this film. I think, and I'm going to make an argument for it in several different cases when we watch it, the reason people hate this movie so much is because it is titled Godzilla. It has its problems, but I think the main reason that people don't like this movie in the way that they like Pacific Rim or whatever is simply because it is titled Godzilla and not something else.
So
clear his throat.
What aspect of it, just real quickly, because I'm curious, what aspect of it makes you defend it so hard? Like, do you just think it's a solid movie all around?
I think it's a solid movie.
You just think it's solid. Okay. I remember thinking it was fine. I was never a Godzilla person though, growing up.
I was.
So I watched this back in the day when I was younger, and it was like, that was fine. And I just moved on and never really revisited it because I've just never been a big Godzilla guy.
Yeah, I love Godzilla. I've watched all the Toho stuff and everything.
I will say my biggest selling point for it is at least you see Godzilla for more than 90 seconds of fucking screen time.
Oh yeah, Godzilla's got a lot of time in this.
He's actually in the fucking movie, unlike the was it 2014? What was the year of the
2016, I think.
I thought it was 2014.
Maybe it is. My brain is gone. I've been sick for a month, Jeff.
That's unlucky, dude.
That's unfortunate.
We need to get you a blood bag, man. We gotta find you a universal donor.
Right.
It was 2014.
What came out in 2016?
That was 10 years ago. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Nothing came out in 2016.
Nothing at all.
What am I thinking of? No, Skull Island was 2017. What the fuck came out? Something, I don't know. Something came out in 2016, surely. No, I think
Civil War
it's a
came out in
solid movie.
2016.
What did?
I think Civil War came out in 2016.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking
It's
of,
exactly
Jeff.
what you're thinking. That's the same thing, right? Dude, that time that Captain America fought Godzilla, that was crazy.
That's something I would watch, actually. No, I think this movie is I think it's a solid movie. I don't think it's a perfect 10 or anything. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it gets a lot of the human stuff correct while keeping in balance with the theme and the kaiju. But it also has some of my favorite aspects from Jurassic Park in it, which happened in 1993, so 5 years earlier. So, yeah, it has a lot of the same themes running through it that Jurassic Park has.
That is interesting. I never thought about that, but it does have a vibe that's similar to Jurassic Park to it.
Yeah, and it is a profoundly sad movie. So, and like I said, I'll go into detail about all of that when I cover it.
We will see how the redemption. What was the last redemption thing that you had? You had one like somewhat recently, I remember.
You give me a minute, I can tell you. We've reached the saturation point where I can't tell you what we have and have not covered at this point.
Yeah. Oh, Predator 2.
Predator
that was
2
the one that you wanted to have redemption about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is a partial success because I adore the second half of Predator 2. I will never fucking watch the first half of Predator 2 again in my life.
Well, not only that, like even the little bit of feedback that we get on the show is from friends that we know in real life, but even feedback we've been getting back about that is like, no, Predator 2 is a solid movie. So
yeah, for sure.
But no, I think Godzilla is a good fun time. I think it's. I mean, I showed it to my 7-year-old kids. It's fine for kids. It's a good family movie. I mean, Godzilla is for kids. It should be.
Right.
So
I mean, hell, like the original stuff had almost like a Power Rangers vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Super Sentai and everything gets that vibe from. Is the original Toho stuff. So
yeah, I will be curious to check it out again because, like I said, like fuck, I don't think I've seen that movie in 20 years.
Matthew Broderick. Jean Reno.
Jean Reno is the one I remember. I fucking love Jean Reno.
Hank Azaria. Yeah.
I like Hank Azaria.
No, it's got a good cast to it. It's what is it? Yeah, Roland Emmerich.
Does Matthew Broderick open up the movie with like excavating some worms or something?
He doesn't open the movie, no, but yes, the first time you see him, that's what he's doing. He's the worm. He's known throughout the movie as the worm guy.
Okay, I was wondering. I was like, why do I have a memory of him like having a baggie of worms or something? It's like that. I don't know why that's the scene that my brain latched onto for 25 years.
He is a former anti-war, anti-nuclear protester that is turned scientist and is studying the radioactive fallout of places like Chernobyl and places where nuclear testing has been done. And he talks about like his whole thing is like how it is changing the ecology of the environment, how it is changing the animals that live there, and like how the worms are like 30% larger than they're supposed to be, and things like that.
Gotcha.
And because of his work, like when they bring him in, there's a character that's like, I tried to tell them this isn't your field when they brought him in to work on Godzilla. She's like, but of course, they wouldn't listen. But the thing is, it is his field. They brought him in because his work, like when you're talking gamma radiation, you bring in Bruce Banner, right? They're talking about the radiation effects of animals in places where nuclear testing has been done. And French Polynesia, where the French have been testing nuclear weapons, is where this Godzilla is from. So that's why they bring him in. It does match actually what his field is.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I just remember very, very vague snippets.
And it's got a pretty cool push and pull between the military because he's on the scientific team, and when he discovers there's a nest, probably that they need to be hunting for, all the scientist people around him are like, if there's a nest, we need to find the fucking nest. And they're like, no, we need to take out the creature. And they're like, no, you don't have time to look for the creature. Look for the goddamn nest because he's gathering food.
The nest is the problem because once that thing is, up and running, you're fucked.
Here's the thing. When you watch the movie, the first time you don't notice it. But watching the movie after I say this, you'll notice there are all these lingering shots of fish. He attacks fishing trolleys all the way to America. It's anywhere there's fish is where he shows up. And he points out this thing is gathering food, which means it has a nest somewhere that's going to hatch soon because it's providing food for the young. Like the top priority should be the nest, and there's this push and pull between the military and the science people in it and stuff. Yeah, it's got a lot of good human stuff going on, which a lot of people say is their favorite part of Godzilla, and I think it does it better than especially a lot of the recent Godzilla stuff does. I haven't seen Godzilla. What is it? Godzilla -1? Godzilla +1?
I think it's -1. I haven't seen that yet either.
I haven't seen that yet. I've heard that is fucking incredible for the monster stuff and the human stuff. I haven't seen that yet. I can't speak to that. But everything that I've heard is that it's really good.
Is that one subtitled? Is that one
I believe so.
From Japan? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it's dubbed. I think it's subtitled.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, I was curious about that one because I heard a lot of people. They got a lot of buzz on Twitter when it came out.
Every podcast I listen to has been talking about it. Even non-movie podcasts I listen to are talking about it. So anyway, we got to get out of here. Watch Godzilla on Hulu and then listen to me rant about it because I rant about people that have watched it because I think people are looking at the movie all wrong. I think they're just mad that it's not Toho or mad that it's not a guy in a rubber suit is what I think they're mainly mad at.
Yeah, we'll have to actually look up some of the reviews on it too, because I will be curious to see what the kind of point of no return for like the reviews of it, because from what I remember about it, which is I don't remember it very, very specifically, but what really was
I was live texting you like a week ago. I
don't really understand what the kind of preferred outcome would have been that you just didn't get in the movie. Yeah, we'll rewatch it, and then, like I said,
if you
need to watch it again.
If you are in the boat that hated it, and you plan to listen to the episode, I encourage you to rewatch it, but don't think of it as Godzilla. Just think of it as a kaiju movie. I think they say Godzilla like 3 times in the movie. They don't even really call it that.
Doesn't he have like a different design too?
Yes, that's the main reason everybody hates the movie. That is number one reason people hate this movie.
I can kind of get that. If you have a very, very specific connection with the creature design, it's like with me with like watching John Carpenter's The Thing versus the prequel movie they made where it was all fully CGI, where I have like a personal connection to the way the original one looked, and watching them just butcher the effects and everything, which was such like a vital part of the original movie, really fucking made me furious about it. So I kind of get that aspect of it as far as like just being that much of a fan, but also it's like I don't know. I can't look at it in that same mindset because I'm not a Godzilla guy,
It's perfectly fine and passable as just a kaiju movie. Don't even think of it as Godzilla if you don't like it because it's not your Godzilla. But it's a different Godzilla to begin with.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
If it's more in the vein of the Star Trek reboot where it exists simultaneously, and we'll talk about that also.
We'll talk about it. Thanks everyone for tuning in for another year of Screenplay Rewind. It's been a really fun year, 2023. For if you look through our catalog over the last few months, especially, I like the variety we have on the show as far as really, really covering just drastically different genres. Especially when we have Friends and Family Month come around, and God knows what's going to be happening next year when we do that again.
Here's a perfect example.
It's a fun time.
We went from The Northman to Gone in 60 Seconds to Inglourious Bastards to My Cousin Vinny, and that was 63 through 66.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment when you're waiting to hear what we've selected for the next show. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Bobby, if you're listening this far, I already know my next movie because of a conversation we had when you were at my house the other day. So, yeah.
Oh, man. It's going to be fun. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate everyone that tunes in. And, have a great night. Have a safe New Year. I think we're actually dropping this, like, on New Year's, the day right before New Year's Eve. Yeah. Please have a safe holiday. Drive safe. And, yeah, we'll catch you in the next episode. Have a good night.
Good movie is good.
Indeed.